Good morning, I'm News Center Maine's Don Carrigan here with this week's Political Brew. We are joined by Republican analyst Lisa Keim, former state senator, now former, and Democratic analyst, longtime commentator Ken Altshuler.
But
Thank
a commissioner.
You both. Yes, county commissioner.
Yes, first woman to be Oxford County Commissioner.
Well, congratulations. Good
About
for you.
time.
Yeah,
Now we need a
about
woman
time.
president, we all set.
All
Great
right.
president.
So we're going to talk a little bit about some main issues to start with. Pretty quiet week in terms of government and politics in Maine, but among the things that's happened, all the committee assignments have come out for the Maine legislature, including the chairs of those committees. Any thoughts as you've looked at some of those? Does it signal anything in particular? Lisa, I'll start with you.
I don't see it signaling anything in particular. I was a little surprised to see Rachel Talbot-Ross chairing the Ag Committee. That seems to not be a fit there, and there was some raised eyebrows there. I was really happy to see that Representative Amy Arata is back on the Appropriations Committee. She has a strong backbone and she has a great mind for figures, so I think she'll be helpful there. Of course, we're going to be missing Selwyn. The entire building is going to be missing Selwyn Millett,
Yes.
who actually serves with me as an Oxford County Commissioner now. So,
Oh, great.
Yeah, so the state's loss is Oxford County's gain, but so not a lot of surprises, I think.
Yeah, okay.
I agree, and as you pointed out before we started the program, there's a lot of more seasoned legislators leading the committees, at least some of the more important ones like appropriations. I think that's good. Without getting into a debate about term limits, I think you want the more experienced people as the chairs, and I think it's good. Right now it's calm, that's good.
Yeah.
And so I don't see anything really exciting happening right now.
But the governor, you mentioned appropriations. Governor Mills already has telegraphed to the legislature that to expect fairly tight budget. They've put in as chairs of the Appropriations Committee two people who are former chairs, Senator Rotundo, who was co-chair last year and then back in the day, and Drew Gattine, former chair, who's back in the legislature, and he's been put in. There's several.
Ken Fredette, you mentioned, is on that committee as well.
Who had been on it before, former Republican leader, other members who have experience on that. So I'm wondering if that may be a signal of the importance that they're going to have to all work together to not avoid a budget fight.
I think absolutely.
Yeah.
I hope they do.
Yeah, and Governor Mills also signaled that she's basically threatened to veto concept drafts, which I thought was probably, we'll see how that plays out, but there's been so much pushback on concept drafts. So hopefully
For those
right away.
for our listeners who don't know, a concept draft is a bill that's put in basically as a placeholder with no details to it.
Right, just a title, and so you basically just know the topic, but you don't know anything else, and it just throws everyone by surprise when language gets put in front of them, and they're expected to work a bill they've never seen.
And I know there's talk about either eliminating that or severely limiting it.
Yes, yeah.
So,
Which makes sense. I understand the need for placeholders on some things, but frankly, if you want to put a bill in, you should know what it's going to be.
Yes.
Right.
that would seem reasonable. Okay. Saturday, a week ago, I was walking on the street in Bath, and I got asked to sign a petition for gun control, which I don't sign petitions. I presume it was red flag. We know the red flag law petitions are out there circulating. Ken, I'll start with you. If that gets to the legislature, do you think it'll pass?
I think it does. I'm not sure I understand, and maybe you can explain to me if you disagree with it, why people are opposed to the red flag law. I think the yellow flag law, which we have, is good, but it doesn't allow the families to petition for a safety net. And I know they say it's infringing upon the Second Amendment rights of people, but so does the yellow flag law, and we have that to the same extent. After the Lewiston shooting, you would think that they would do whatever they could do, and I know it's not likely to happen again in Maine, although we just had a shooting in Wisconsin. So we're not out, we're having school shootings all the time. I think the red flag law is a great idea. I'm a strong proponent of it. I trust police officers. I trust the judicial system to temporarily intervene if necessary. I trust those safety. It's better to err on the side of caution and prevent a massacre. Listen, I'm okay with Second Amendment rights.
Let's let Lisa chime in on this.
Err on the side of caution can be taken to any extreme in any situation. So we absolutely have to protect people's constitutional rights. They're right up there with parental rights. So it's not somehow diminished because we're talking about a firearm. Maine has an incredibly strong law. It was proven to have been able to stop what happened in Lewiston.
It wasn't used.
It wasn't
It
used.
wasn't used, but it could have been, right? So any law that's not used is a useless law, and that's actually what is could be categorized the red flag. It was in New York. They didn't use it on Robert Card. They could have. Massachusetts has the law. It's used barely a handful of times. And Maine families don't have to go petition the courts. The most natural thing to do, if you feel like there is an urgently dangerous situation, you call 911. So it's very automatic for people to reach out to law enforcement and say, I see danger here. That's the yellow flag
But does it give the
process.
police the right
question.
to take the guns?
So I'll ask you the same question I
As soon-
asked Ken. If their petition drive is successful, it gets to the legislature, will the legislature pass that?
Absolutely not. They shouldn't. We have a process that absolutely works. The red flag law has proven to be unconstitutional in other states. It's maybe headed for the Supreme Court at some point. But when you have something that works, you don't throw it out and take something that doesn't. And it's been proven not to work. And I think once you dig into the details, which I have obviously for so long because I was one of the sponsors of that bill, you will see what an amazing sort of process was put into place with this, and we have what's best. We shouldn't go back to
The
something.
Supreme Court
that
has
isn't.
said you can make reasonable limits on the Second Amendment right to own guns, and a brief period of time that you remove the guns for a safety purpose is not an infringement on the Second Amendment. Really, it's not.
All right, quickly, earlier this week, the federal government, President Biden, announced that he was naming the Francis Perkins Center in Newcastle as a new national monument. It's actually now happened. The Park Service has taken ownership of a piece of it. Do you, Lisa? I'll start with you. Is this something good for Maine? I mean, I think you politically disagree with some of the things that Francis Perkins advocated.
Right. I mean, she was a registered socialist, so that is sort of anti-American in the crux of it. But, she broke barriers and was the first woman cabinet leader, and so there's a lot there to respect, I think, as her influence. I just wish her influence had been something that I agreed with more politically.
Remember, socialism and communism was very popular in the 1930s. I'm not sure it has the same meaning that we give to it when we hear those words, but she was a pioneer, first female to have a cabinet position. I understand you might not like her politics, but anytime we celebrate a statesperson, particularly a stateswoman, I think is a great thing.
All right. A lot more to talk about this morning, including what's happening in Washington, all upside down. We'll be back with part 2 of Political Brew. Welcome back to this week's Political Brew. I'm News Center Maine's Don Carrigan, joined this week by Democratic analyst Ken Altshuler, Republican analyst Lisa Keim. Thank you folks again for being here. We're recording this on a Friday at a time when the U.S. Congress and federal government is in total upheaval. Don't know whether there's going to be a budget passed, whether there'll be a shutdown. So we hope something's resolved by the time you folks are watching this. But this all kind of blew up because Elon Musk, appointed, not elected, and then President Trump blew the whistle and told Republicans in Congress not to support the budget compromise that was ready to be passed. Lisa, first of all, did they do the right thing in your view?
I believe they did. Yeah, when you look at, I enjoyed seeing a photo of the stack of the continuing resolution, which was, this high, 1,500 pages, right? And then, the change that they made was then very slimmed down. And a continuing resolution should be just that. It should be, let's keep the government going at the status quo. They had thrown in pork. They had thrown in a lot of policy changes that I think were very concerning. And I know that they did that to win votes, right? Because we have people probably on both sides of the aisle that are absolutely willing to watch the government shut down and be happy at who's going to take the blame for that, right? Like then it becomes just a blame game. So I think they did the right thing to pull back.
But here we have President-elect Trump, a month away from being inaugurated, his chief budget assistant, Elon Musk, advising him, already basically running the government.
You know what's interesting is that our president is completely missing, as is Kamala Harris. They're absolutely absent in this process. Why? They shouldn't be.
Kamala Harris has nothing to do with the process.
she is a leader
She's the
that
vice
should
president.
at least be weighing in and trying to encourage compromise and keeping the government going. I would assume, but yes, President Trump is weighing in very heavily on this. I think that's fairly expected because what passes then is where he steps in. So that matters.
Okay.
Well, Joe Biden didn't do that when he was coming into office. He let the term expire, although President Trump wasn't going to leave. And we're talking about President Musk, I think, not President Trump, aren't we? Because he's making policies. Now, are you ready for the shock of the day?
Okay.
The bill was a horrible bill. I think Musk was right for the wrong reasons because he completely made up the facts, somewhat like Donald Trump does. He said that they were getting a 40% raise, a 3.8% raise, which was stupid. They shouldn't have even done that. He also said there was money in for Ukraine. No money in for Ukraine. So his reasons for vetoing it, which is what President Musk did, are wrong. But the bill is a horrible bill, full of pork. This is what we do all the time. I will agree to your $100 billion if you agree to my $100 billion. That's not the way we should give it. So I agree with you. The bill is bad. I don't believe in government shutdown, and I think that the American public is not going to appreciate it. There'll be a deal, in my opinion, and it's going to be trimmed down, and it should be. So I actually agree with President Musk.
So Congressman Golden had been very public about opposing the original bill, and then he voted against the Plan B bill last night. So Congressman Golden interviewed on CNN back a couple of days ago, wearing a suit, we will say, which we don't see him in Maine very much, and outlining his reasons for it, the pay raise for members of Congress being one of the biggest ones. Are we surprised? Does this signal anything about him taking a bigger, more vocal role?
I believe it does. Yeah, I believe he's trying to come out and be absolutely out front about being moderate. One of the things that he said that I've said many times that I think even Republicans have lost the way on is that we have to get our hands around the debt. Like, we just can't keep increasing the debt ceiling without having strong measures of saying, what are we going to do to reduce spending? And he brought that up. That's generally a Republican position and a conservative fiscal position that I think Republicans need to return to strongly.
And to follow up on that, and that's the point, with the new proposal, Donald Trump wants the debt ceiling eliminated, which is a very anti-Republican philosophy.
Agreed.
And I agree with you also that Jared is trying to come off as independent. And I think that's also a signal that maybe he will not be running for governor as a Democrat, maybe as an independent. But he's always been this way. He's always been against raises. I mean, he said we're public servants. 174,000 is the median family income for a family of 4. We're public servants. Why do we need more money? And I think he's legitimate. I like it. I admire him. I agree with him.
Is that going to win him any friends in Congress?
No, but he doesn't have many friends in Congress. So,
When you're in the middle of the road, you get hit by traffic both
exactly.
ways.
Well said.
Very good
well
point.
Said.
So speaking of government in turmoil, the government in Canada, the federal government, is in upheaval of its own. People even predicting that Prime Minister Trudeau is in jeopardy because of financial problems. In the Canadian government, the finance minister close to Trudeau resigned basically in protest. There's a Trump connection because they're saying that President Trump wanting to put a huge tariff on goods from Canada is threatening the whole Canadian economy. Ken, I'll ask you first. Is Prime Minister Trudeau going to be booted out?
I think so. I think that he's not very popular in his own party. He's not very popular across the country. What happens with the tariff threat is that with some of the expenditures that Trudeau wants to do as the leader of the Liberal Party, they're not going to be able to afford with tariffs if that happens. So that is putting a big crunch on them. And so what they need to do is show, I hate to say this, but fiscal conservatism, and he's not capable of doing that. And so I think the Liberal Party, I think there'll be a vote of confidence. I think the Liberal Party will probably throw him out. And if not, the Liberal Party, which is not in the majority, is going to have a real trouble finding a majority leader.
And Lisa, how does, if at all, how does this impact the U.S.?
I don't know how that's actually going to impact the U.S. I think one thing that we should recognize from what's been happening in Canada is that their policies that they have, they're down the road a little bit further than we are on some of the green energy policies, obviously, the immigrant policies, and their safety is kind of, their public safety has really tanked. People are feeling the policies in their pocketbooks, and they're saying no more. They want fiscal responsibility. They want to feel safe in their homes. And so I believe, dodged a bullet by having Trump be president and having those same policies, if it was Kamala Harris, instituted here in the United States. So, and gimmicks. The other thing is that when the right-hand official resigned, she said, that he's been having financial gimmicks to keep the votes of the people, including stimulus checks for households. So I had to laugh at that because that's reminiscent of right here in Maine, where we were handing out stimulus checks also.
But those tariffs, if he imposes them, is going to hurt our economy.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. The tariffs are going to cause inflation for us. Yeah.
All right, winners and losers for this week. Ken, we'll start with you.
My winner is Jared Golden. I really admire him. I think he stands up against his party. I think what he said was true when he said he doesn't vote for Biden all the time, and he doesn't. I think he's the kind of politician we need in the state of Maine and our country, and I think he's my winner of the week. Loser of the week, I'm going to bang this drum a lot, is our democracy, because we have an authoritarian president coming in my opinion. Elon Musk is running the country. He has no constituency. He has no controls over him. Donald Trump is going after people that he sees as being opposed to him. Liz Cheney is a perfect example. This committee was saying we should go prosecute her because of
witness tampering.
But there was no witness tampering, none, zero. And lots of conservatives have come out and said this is absolute nonsense. Remember who did that report? Okay, so.
All right.
Democracy is my loser of the week.
Okay,
so,
Lisa.
Loser of the week for me would be transparency and accountability in the office of president. Because as I said earlier, our president, we understand, is mentally incapable of running our country, so we have no idea who is making these decisions. I have no idea, and I think that is a shame. And winners of the week, well, it's almost Christmas, and this time of year I've just seen, and we always do, right, people helping people, especially toy drives for children, and I was involved with one in my area that helped almost 1,500 kids in our area, and I just love that. I love that human kindness is shining bright, even with a mess in Washington and all the politics that are going on that are a jumble. It's Christmas.
All right. Great. Thank you both very much. Thank you for being with us. We'll be back next Sunday with a special edition of Political Brew, wrapping up the year. News Center Maine continues right after this.